This is Kathryn Goetzke, host of the Hope Matrix podcast. We are here to share science, stories, and strategies for how to hope. I'm the Chief Hope Officer of the Shine Hope Company, and Shine is the mnemonic for how we teach hope. So when we talk about hope, we talk about how we use stress skills, happiness habits, inspired actions, nourishing networks, and eliminating challenges, which are our thinking patterns that get in the way of our ability to hope. Hope is a skill. You can measure hope, you can teach hope, and you can start practicing skills to activate higher hope in your life today. And on this Hope Matrix podcast, we aim to bring in guests, experts in science, people with stories, and those that have strategies for activating hope in your life. Hello, this is Kathryn Goetzke with the Hope Matrix podcast. Thank you so much for joining today. I am so excited for our guest coming all the way from South Africa. So hopefully we won't have any issues today on recording and with technology. We'll see how that goes. But I'm happy to introduce you, Damian Wąsowicz. Yes. We were practicing a little before. He is an author and he has a truly incredible story. I cannot wait to share with you. I read his book from front to back in a night, was just super intrigued. Veronica, who works with us, actually suggested I talk to you and get you on board. So I'm so excited to have you here today, to have you share your story, to talk about hope and how you shined hope throughout this. I think you did a pretty incredible job of showcasing how to use these skills for hope throughout your journey, and we'll touch on some of those. But welcome today. Thanks for joining.
Thank you. And thank you to you. I'm very excited to be speaking to you today, as well as to your listeners. And before we go into any detail, first of all, I'd like to say congratulations to you, as well as your team, for onboarding Las Vegas as another hopeful city in the States. I think that is amazing. So big congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm so excited.
And I think secondly, secondly was that congratulations to the city for recognizing, A, they've got a problem, but B, actually looking at what is the cause of the problem. You know, it's so easy for societies to take a bandage and to put it onto a wound, and not actually understanding what is the actual disease, what is the actual thing that we need to solve. So well done to them, to the mayor, wherever it may be in the town, for actually looking a little bit deeper.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, Mayor Pro Tem Brian Knudsen, he's a council member, and he was really the visionary behind this. So grateful. And the reality is we all have a problem. I mean, there's 57% of teen girls in the U.S. identify with persistent hopelessness and violence and suicide and addiction, and kind of all of these things are driven by hopelessness, and we all experience moments of hopelessness all the time. So it's really a whole society approach and something we all need to understand. It doesn't mean there's something wrong with us. It's just, hopelessness is a part of society. So it's really about normalizing that conversation and then teaching the skills to get to hope. So yeah, super excited that they joined on, and also grateful to Gard Jamison and the Mayor's Fund, who helped support the initiative and get it launched in the city. So looking forward to bringing that to South Africa too.
We knew that. I actually did a bit of research on the English language. I'm Polish by birth. I'm perhaps more South African now that I'm Polish, but I did a bit of research, right? And here's a fact that perhaps some of your listeners, I'm pretty sure you know it, but some of your listeners may perhaps not know it. The word hope first appeared in the English dictionary in the year 1150. Came from a Germanic word. But if you go a little bit further in history, you'll actually find it appear as early as 900 BC in Greek methodology of Zeus. Right? So we're speaking about plus minus 1,000 years before Christ. It appears in public works. Thereafter, 1,000 years plus minus after Christ, it goes into English dictionary. And then it took 350 years for the word hopeless to be included in the English dictionary. And the only conclusion I can arrive with that sort of analysis is that hopelessness must be becoming larger and larger, more prevalent in our society. And I think we can see it everywhere, be that the States, be it Vegas in your case, be that Johannesburg, Cape Town in our case, in South Africa, be that probably Warsaw in Poland and other cities all around the world. So well done to you once again and to your team for taking something and putting a program around it. So we can actually have a way to systematically eradicate or minimize hopelessness in the world.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah, really, our vision is to get all cities on board and teach all people, everyone, everywhere. This is what hopelessness is. We're learning how to be hopeless, which is really when you break down the word and the research around it, emotional despair. So you feel sad, angry, afraid. And then it's motivational helplessness. So you feel unable, powerless to do anything about it. And of course, if you're sad and you feel powerless, of course, that can lead to addiction. Of course, if you're angry and feel powerless, it can lead to violence and suicide and these kinds of things. And it's really learning how to manage those moments, normalizing the fact that, if you live on this planet, you're going to experience those moments. You're going to get emails you don't like. You're going to get cut off in traffic. Some of them are small moments, as I say, and some of them are big moments, which really, that brings me to your story. You have one of the most extraordinary stories of really encountering the biggest challenge ever and figuring your way out of it. And so I want to dive into that for our listeners. I couldn't have written the book better and created a better hope story for how these things we do get put into action and how they can change our lives for the better. You could have fallen for sure into a deep kind of sense of hopelessness and likely gotten worse or not made it. So I want to get right into your story. Can you tell us a little bit, Damian, about what happened? And first, what's the title of your book? Let's get that.
It's called The Bicycle Test: Finding Belief, Purpose, and Hope After Traumatic Brain Injury. It's available on Amazon as a hard copy, as an e-copy as well. Yeah, so it's been a journey writing the book. It was a journey of self-discovery. And the reason why I say that is that what happened to me, basically, and I'll speak to it in a second, is that, as the book implies, I had a traumatic brain injury. So my ability to develop problems relating to my memory is quite high. It's probably higher than average, So I actually wanted at first to write a story or to actually put together the pieces that happened to me, to make sense of it myself. So that's how I actually started journaling what happened to me. Thereafter, as I was doing that, and I started speaking to other individuals that have gone through trauma of various kinds, I found that what I went through and how I approached it could serve as an idea to make someone's lives a little bit easier. The book was really written, first of all, for selfish reasons. I'll be very honest with you about it. But second of all, and this is what really the book has become, is a guide of how to deal with traumatic events. Be that physical, be that emotional, any traumatic event. And just going back to how all of this started, it's been 14 years ago now, plus minus 14 years ago that this occurred. But I was really in a peak sort of physical condition. I was a man of 30 at that stage. I had a good job. I was very, very fit. I was well built. I had a better looking face than what I have right now, although there was a bit of plastic surgery to try to put this thing together, but really things were looking so great, and it all started like a Hollywood movie, believe it or not. It's actually incredible. It all started with this arbitrary event, believe it or not, in Iceland. Now, Iceland is right north, right next to Greenland, and South Africa is right at the bottom, right? And you're thinking, well, how could this actually impact my life? And there was a volcanic eruption in 2010 that sent so much ash debris into the atmosphere that all the flights were suspended over Europe. And I was actually supposed to fly from South Africa to our London office to work there for a couple of weeks. And all of a sudden, well, there was no longer a flight. And being a man who likes to see that it was half full, I spoke to my two brothers, Adrian and Valde, who are both very, very keen cyclists. And I thought to ourselves, look, Tuesday is a public holiday in South Africa. So if we take the Monday off, you're going to have Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday to have a brilliant long weekend of cycling. And me being perhaps a little bit older, so the age difference between myself and my younger brother is 14 years of age. And I was a little bit worried, Saturday, Sunday, roads would be quiet. Tuesday, public holiday, roads would be quiet. But on Monday, the roads might be a little bit too busy for our liking, especially with my little younger brother, So we decided to go to a park that's located plus minus about 40 miles south of Johannesburg, called Stekerbosrand. And it is it's not like this idyllic place for cycling. It has hills that one wouldn't dream of in Johannesburg. It has the fauna and the flora that takes the words away, And as we were going up the one hill, right on top, we were almost at the crest. My two brothers were on the right side, a little bit in front of me. Not that I'm always willing to say that. Usually I'm the one who's in front, but that time, pretty sure for a reason, I let them go to the front. And as we were just about to summons the hill, this car came screaming in the opposite direction. We worked out he must have been driving about 90 kilometers an hour. So that's about, I guess, 50, 60 miles an hour in the opposite direction. And it just missed my two brothers and he went straight into me. So obviously I'm going in the opposite direction. He's coming at a very, very high speed against me. And my hands first went into the bonnet. I'm not sure what you can see here, but this hand was quite badly damaged. Some of the knuckles actually shifted back. So that's the first thing that took impact. Thereafter, my knee made contact with a light and it just lacerated that knee completely. My shoulder hit the bonnet so badly that everything here was shattered. I still carry not only the shoulder, in my entire body, quite a lot of titanium that actually holds me together, but we're actually thinking about putting an artificial limb here, an artificial bone, because it was so hard to reconstruct it. And luckily, Valde, my older brother, refused that, and they managed to put me together. Thereafter, my head hit the windshield, which shattered. My face, my skull, then hit the steering wheel, and basically cut me from here all the way to the other side. And I learned a new English word called degloving. And that is ultimately when, like a glove that you take from your hand, you expose everything that's underneath. That is what happened to me. So my face actually fell down, and you could see my skull and everything that was in it. All the 4 lobes in my head were broken. There was a piece of skull that actually went into my brain. My nose was broken. One of my eyes shifted back. My cheeks were broken. I can actually, to this day, feel a piece of titanium that we've got here. And I'm speaking to you right now. It's 31 degrees Celsius, which is about 85, 88 Fahrenheit. So it's quite warm. Now, when it gets cold, it really becomes painful. It's not only that, also all the other things in my body. Jaw was broken. I then was flung over the car. It was actually a pickup truck. And I landed at the back where there was just rubbish. So at least I was afforded a very, very soft landing. But by the time I landed, it was amazing. By the time I landed, 8 of my vertebrae were compromised. Some of them were cracked. Some of them were compressed together. And each and every blade in between the vertebrae were crushed as well. So 8 vertebrae of 33 implies 25% of my back was compromised, and I lay there. My younger brother the guy said to act. So my younger brother jumped into the back of the pickup truck. He was 16 at that stage. And he had to hold his one hand, my head together. And then they put fingers into my mouth because they were quite worried I would shock on my blood. And while they drove the car down to a hotel that existed in the park, and no one had a clue who to call, where the first aid kit was. Right. And once again, and listen to this, right? Arbitrary events. So the arbitrary event that made me cycle in Sekebos Run was another gentleman, a South African national, Henderson, who just got married to his wife, who's actually from the great United Kingdom, to be present in Sekebos Run because he wasn't able to fly back to Europe. And he actually undergone certain medical training while he was in the army. So he was able to stabilize me to a degree. His wife was a bit more knowing than I guess the guys. She managed to cover me up to make sure that my body temperature didn't drop down too much. So those two arbitrary events, the one almost killed me and the other one, I'm sure, has saved my life, which was, a complete blessing in disguise.
Yeah, and you're in the middle of nowhere. And so, it's far away from any medical facility. And if you're listening in, you can check this out on video because I'm sitting here looking at you, watching you talk and point to the areas and reading the book. You have a lot of images in the book that are super helpful to oh my gosh, it's just unbelievable kind of what you went through physically. Again, in the middle of nowhere in South Africa. Not nowhere, but far from medical facilities. Yeah. So go ahead. So go on.
Yeah. And by the time I was actually enlisted to the hospital, I'm not too sure how true the stat is, but this stat was confirmed by the hospital. Apparently, I lost 40% of my blood at that stage. The death rate happens way below that, or you have to lose less blood for you to die. So how true that stat is, I'm not too sure, but I think with everything that happened, I wouldn't be too surprised if it is in fact true. And for me, what happened, which I think happens in a lot of people's lives, you're okay on day one. You go to sleep, you wake up, and everything changes, and it's that shock of something happening to you, either something that happens as an accident in my case, something physical that happens to you. It doesn't have to be physical. It can be emotional. It can be anything, but these things occur in our lives. They can occur right now. They can occur in 5 minutes from now. They can occur in the next week, in the next 2 weeks, in the next 10 years, And we always take everything for granted until something like this occurs to you, and then you are on the other side of the equation that you never thought you would be. So in my case, sort of my recovery, or the impact of the accident, my recovery, two distinct phases. So the first phase actually occurred when I was in a coma. I was in an induced coma for about 2 weeks. So obviously that played a big role, or it had a big impact on the people around me, on my networks. So the people that were there that loved me, be that my parents, be that my girlfriend at the time, be that all my friends, they took the knock of that situation. I was asleep, I was suddenly asleep, and that was really it. The second phase occurred when I woke up, and it's not like in the movies. In the movies, a person is in a coma, and they open up their eyes, and they can speak, and they can move, and they can make sense of everything. And that's not how it happens in real life. In real life, you are, first of all, full of drugs. So as you're coming out, you're slipping back into coma, coming out, slipping back. Then when you actually do come out of it, which in my case, once again, this arbitrary little incident that happened, it was on Mother's Day that I awoke, fully awoke. And my mother was by my side 16 hours a day, each and every day, until that time when I woke up. And it happened on Mother's Day, which was, once again, a blessing in disguise. But I felt like, you can see here, I had a trachea, and that was basically helping me breathe. My head was so broken that apparently my ears were not visible. I was so swelled up that my ears were no longer visible to anyone. I had absolutely no hair. It had to be cut off. I had to restitch my scalp. But obviously, a lot of tubes I had going into my stomach, feeding me. I had another tube so I could urinate without having to stand up. There were other things. I'm not going to speak to listeners right now, but I encourage them to read the book so I understand how completely and utterly you become like a prisoner of your own body. I was lying there, although I could think, although I could hear, I couldn't speak. I couldn't ask people about what happened to me. So my eyes opened out. Nothing happened. I didn't know what. And it took a very, very long time for me to be able to piece those things together. But speaking about hope and speaking about why, I perhaps woke up once again with a glass half full as opposed to half empty. My brother researched the fact that when a person is in a coma, be it an induced coma or not induced coma, they are able to hear certain things. So he put a playlist together with some of my favorite musicians on it. And he put the headphones on my ear while I was lying there completely and utterly unconscious in my induced coma. He was playing Pearl Jam to me. I've always been a fan of Pearl Jam. I have remained a Pearl Jam fan since I was perhaps around about 14 or 15 years of age. Neil Young, etc., etc. And what that helped me do is it helped me to take the situation that I was dealing with. I was able to take Eddie Vedder's words from Pearl Jam. Actually, the song is called Down. It was written in 2002. And sing that song with him in my mind. And sooner or later, I was able to replace some of his lyrics with my own lyrics. And that is something very, very powerful. I mean, the first step of trying to deal with something is to understand what is wrong. Try to verbalize it. Try to write it down. Now, you have to write a goal if you want to achieve it. What the song allowed me to do was put the lyrics onto a song that was very, very close to my heart. I was, at this stage, unable to write. I was unable to move. I was literally tied down to the bed so I wouldn't take out any of these pipes out of my body as I started to come out of the coma, So that was really, really powerful, And I got to thank Eddie Vedder and Pearl Jam for being the band that they are. Believe it or not, they never disclosed the meaning of their songs. And the reason for that is that it allows individuals to find their own song, their own stories in what they sing about, and in my life, that proved to be a miracle that I needed at that stage.
Yeah, you talked about that a lot in your book, about that song and how powerful it was for you. And I think, too, you did a really great job of describing how just horrific it was being trapped in your body and not being able to, just like feeling like a prisoner in your own body. I just want to take a minute there to just talk a little bit. And I mean, this is a big moment of hopelessness, for your family, for you, when you think about it, the emotional despair and the sense of helplessness. I mean, of course. And so that's really what this is all about, and what my work is all about, is how do you then navigate those feelings of despair and that sense of helplessness and get back on your feet. I read, I think it was like the doctor said you had a less than 5% chance of survival. Is that? Yeah.
For the first week, so it was less than 5% chance of survival, so 95% of death. Thereafter, after the second 2 weeks, or after the first 2 weeks, it was lifted up 10% survival rate. Still 90% death, percentage of death. But it's about finding those little things. So I really spoke about the Pearl Jam song, which is one thing that I found to provide me with inspiration, a hope, a fight in me. The other thing, believe it or not, and I thought this was a cruel joke by my cheeky brother. I woke up the one day and I saw that I had the Livestrong armband on my hand. And I didn't like Lance Armstrong to begin with. I always thought there was something offish about Lance and the way he was conducting himself. I mean, yeah, he was a great sportsman, but the way he was conducting himself, and the way that he spoke down to people always raised a question mark in my head. And I thought my brother was cheeky because at that stage, I didn't have the ability to take off this bloody thing that he put onto my arm. But I tell you what, hey, those two words, live strong, provided so much hope for me. What people don't realize is in our normal life, right? When we go through our day-to-day lives, we have a goal. And the goal is, hey, something's here. But before we get here, we get these peaks and troughs, and they occur like this. But in majority of the cases, we can probably see the goal, and we know where it is. We can actually visualize it. When you are in a situation like I was, it's basically those peaks and troughs. The peaks are high, the troughs are much, much lower.
Yeah.
And everything is squashed together. Now you don't have so much time in between the peak, as much time in between peak as a trough as you would usually. So sometimes when I was in those troughs, it was so hard to see the goal. It was so hard to see the vision. Yeah. And I would look at my hand and I would see those two words. They're strong. And it would inspire me to remain strong.
Yeah.
So that I was able to reach the goal that I sought. And I know that within America, I'm pretty sure that Lance Armstrong was more popular than anyone else in the world. And I'm sure that he was more hated in America than anyone else in the world after his allegations came out. And I'll be very honest with you, right? Regardless of for what reason Lance started Live Strong, whether it was for some inner dark desire, whether he did it out of good, I really don't care. Yeah. What I know is that for me personally, that was a saving grace. So those two words, as once again, it speaks about the fact that you need to be able to articulate our hope, what our hope means to us, to be able to see it on a frequent basis. And that is why our program is good, because your program gives a framework to say, let's not just write down our hope. Let's do little check-ins. Let's check in. Let's test. What is my hope score today? What is my hope score tomorrow? Because I'm even guilty of it, that some days I forget my own story and I get depressed. And it's important that we have to remind ourselves of what has happened in our previous encounters. Yeah. We can carry on forwards as opposed to reminiscing on things that happened in the past.
Yeah. And a couple of things. One, I would say you get sad, not depressed. When we get into a major, that's like but we're, kids identify right now, if they're sad, they're depressed. Well, actually, sadness is super normal. We go through these ups and downs. It's how we manage those emotions proactively, that really matter. I want to go back for just a second to, and we'll talk about the Live Strong, but what the doctors told you. So there is something called the nocebo effect, and that's one of our challenges to hope. E is the shine of the Shine Hope framework. So we have stress skills, happiness habits, inspired actions, nourishing networks, and how to eliminate challenges. Affirming beliefs is a stress skill. It's kind of a good way to manage our stress response. We respond with positive affirming beliefs. The nocebo effect is a challenge to hope because. And the nocebo effect is this. If you're told you're going to have a negative side effect and you take you're given a drug or a sugar pill, right? And you're told it's going to have negative side effects, you're 50% more likely to have those negative side effects even when you're taking the sugar pill. It's similar to the placebo effect, but it's called the nocebo effect. If you're told you're going to die, you have a 95% chance of dying. If you hang on to that and believe that I'm likely going to die, I mean, your chance of dying goes up significantly. So how did you hold on to that 5%, no matter what the doctors were saying? And I think in the book, you talked about it so well. Like your belief was in that I'm going to live, and it's so important that we find a way to do that. How did you do that?
Yeah. It's how this always tricky. I've always been blessed with good networks. And what I mean by good networks is, yes, I've got a family. Yes, I've got good friends. Some friends I've been friends with since I came to South Africa. from primary school, so we speak about 34 years. I still hang out with the guys. We still speak to one another. And you do need that. But what truly helped me in those dark times was understanding, first of all, that I'm not the center of the universe. So what happened to me was bad, granted, very, very bad. But if I was to think about there's something worse not happening to somebody else, and the answer would be no. So if I looked at my grandfather, this was a question that played on my head a lot. My grandfather survived Second World War. He was actually in a concentration camp. And the reason that he got out, he actually put some cement into his eyes, and they thought it was some sort of a disease. And they basically let him go, for the lack of a better word, about executing him. He was probably going to be executed a couple of times along the way, but he managed to survive that, and he managed to live a life that I am in awe with. I mean, he became a mayor of his town. He helped to rebuild it after the Second World War, etc., etc. I always thought to myself, what would my grandfather say to me if I just gave up? Was giving up the right approach? And the answer would be no, because that is what you would do if you don't want to fight. And he was a fighter. So that was the first thing. The second thing was the people around me. I had people praying for me in South Africa. I had people praying for me in Poland. And I could understand it because I am living in South Africa and I come from Poland. I had people praying for me in Israel. I had people praying for me in Canada. But there's some cousins there, so they perhaps spurred it on. But I do think, or I do believe, that energy doesn't just come from within you. It comes from other people as well. And I do believe that energy that I received from everyone around the world, including people in South Africa, helped me push through. The other thing is, when we are little children, we are told that the doctors know everything, that the people that teach us, the teachers know everything, and we must learn from them. And really that we have all the answers that we should have in this world. And as we grow up, we realize that is not the case. We don't know everything. We don't know everything about the universe. We don't know everything about the human body. I don't even know everything about myself, never mind the human body or the universe. And what we have to realize is that doctors are not always right. Doctors, what they know is based on history. It's based on what they've seen. And it's based on averages. They cannot go to my mother and say to her that I will survive, because there is a big chance I will not survive. But there is 5% chance that I will survive. So people have survived this. And that is what we have to look at. Let's not look at what people tell us in terms of what is the bad news. Let's try to be that person who is outside of the norm. Those people have been there. Some of those people haven't even been registered because not in all countries do they keep the count of everyone that has been through trauma or through experience that I was suffering, and that some of the individuals that are listening to us today are in fact suffering.
Yeah, absolutely. And a couple of things I want to comment on there. The N is nourishing networks. It's super important that we work to cultivate strong, healthy networks. And, there are people that haven't spent time intentionally doing that. So they may feel alone or isolated and then have an accident or need support. A couple of things I want to say on that. One, if you don't have a grandfather, that's like I love your grandpa. I feel like I knew your grandfather, how you described him in his book, in your book. But you can research someone that's been through something similar than you, or you can think of a hero that you have and put that in your mind and keep thinking as you go through challenges, what would my hero say, or what would my idol say, or what would someone who's not with me say, or what would someone that I respect say? So you don't have to have that one person in your life. We know with youth, 50% of youth don't feel like they have a trusted adult. So it's really important that whether that person is physical or not, that we do find that anchoring person. I love that. It's a great skill, a great way to do it. And the other thing I would say is if you don't have people that will pray for you, you can basically call any church and ask them for prayers, or write churches and tell them you would like prayers. So there's always a way to get this kind of nourishing support. And I think it goes to show why it's so important that we do invest in our networks, and we do invest, they say there's a loneliness epidemic right now. People feel so isolated and alone. And I respond with, well, then you've got to set goals as to how you're going to connect with other people, right? Like, connection doesn't just happen by happen chance. We have to intentionally put energy into it. And there are skills and things we can do. We can write down goals, and we can start moving towards better connections with others. And you do a really good job of really articulating why your network was so important as you went through this challenge. And we know this about life when we go through any kind of challenge, or if we hope for anything, writing it down is the first key, and then checking in with someone regularly. I think we're up to 95% more likely to achieve something if we have that kind of accountability. So, super important.
Yeah, and especially, Kathryn, so just to add to what you are saying, and you did say it, or you do say it in your course. When you're speaking about networks, there have to be 10,000 people. We have to start off with little networks. So when I begin my conversation, I spoke about my friends that I had since I was in primary school. And I'm not saying that everyone will have friends that the friendship will go such a long way, but start with one, move on to two, move on to three, keep the three further than that if you want to.
Yeah.
But start small and build on that. It's the foundation that is important. And as you say, also about writing your goals, very, very important. But if you find yourself in a situation like I was in, then borrow somebody else's words. Look for Lance Armstrong, who, by the way, I'm a fan of right now.
Good.
But what he delivered to me, and I'm sure thousands of other people, well done to him on that. People can use that as well, Steal somebody else's words and make them your own.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, that's wonderful. So are there other things you'd like to share with our listeners about your journey? And
yeah, it's look, I think in lives, nobody lives a perfect life. Or nobody lives is perfect. Let me perhaps say that. So we all go through ups and downs. It's about how we respond to those ups and downs. I had the accident. I managed to respond to it in one way. I don't believe that I am a perfect man. I don't believe that I'm a man that was blessed with fortune beyond anybody else's fortune. But it's really just how you respond to it. You got to take ownership of your situation. In my case, I'll give you an example. It was very, very easy for me to say, I'm angry. I'm upset with the driver. That driver, just by the way, he was actually employed by the park. He was driving the park's vehicle. I'm also upset with the park's management. And I could dwell on that for years and years to come. But the question is this. And in my case, I'm using this my case as an example, but whoever's listening to this, please look at your own situation. I could dwell on that hatred. I could dwell on that anger. And the question is, what will I gain from that? The only thing that I would gain from that is that I would not cycle again, so I'd be too afraid to cycle. I would not smile again because doing physical activities puts a smile on my face. I will not be happy again. So by default, we have to let go of some of these things that happened to us in the past and concentrate on what is it that you want to be? What is it that I want to be? So we can actually take it further. You have to visualize that and aim towards that going forward. And that is the important bit, So don't think that were perfect to begin with. That's another lesson that I learned. And social stigma, that's also a big, big envelope that we can open up. So what I found in my recovery process is that I never thought of social stigma as something that would have an impact on me until I was the person that was put into that into that box. So all of a sudden, I was a person that had traumatic brain injury. And the stigma associated with people who have traumatic brain injury or acquired brain injury. It's very, very hard to then shut those voices from your head. Because all they're telling you is, no, you won't be able to remember, no, you won't be able to do X, Y, and Z. So it's very, very important for us to take social stigma and throw it to a side. So whereas I said before is that doctors are not always right. Doctors' education is actually based on facts. Social stigma is just based on opinions. So you've got to be able to take that stuff and throw it into the bin as as we possibly can. And we do have to take the time to appreciate life, to appreciate the little things in life. I'm blessed now. I've got 2 daughters, and I'm blessed to sometimes be able to sit with them. And they sometimes just look up and they smile. I said, "Why are you smiling?" And she says, "No, because the light bulb is on." No, and I think to myself, well, I paid for the electricity. It better be bloody well on, But there is that connectivity of innocence that we actually are smiling for the fact that we are here and we're able to see the light bulb. We're able to see the clouds in the sky. Although we know it's going to rain and we're going to get wet and it's not going to be comfortable. You're happy about the fact that you are able to get wet, that you are able to become uncomfortable.
Yeah, that's what we call, those are our happiness habits, and intentionally experiencing those moments of wonder and awe, that we kind of condition ourselves out of because we just take it for granted and it becomes so normal. But really intentionally seeing through the eyes of wonder, it's so good for our hormones and endorphins and dopamine and all of that.
Kathryn, I'm going to go back to what I said before, is that you might read my book and you might listen to me today and you can say, wow, this guy ticks all the boxes, He's happy, he's X, he's Y, but it takes work. It's not something that you are all the time. And you did mention that a little bit before, right? So actually, I've got one cupboard here that when I open that up, I've got a picture of my X-rays of my broken skull. And it's actually available in my book as well. And actually look at that. So that I'm reminded each and every day that it's a blessing. It's about making things visible to yourself. As I said before, the Livestrong armband was very, very powerful. The picture I've got in my cupboard is very, very powerful to just remember, to have that lesson, to remember that lesson and not let go of it. Like I said, let's not hang on to the negative things. If I look at that, I can once again think to myself, yes, but I was hit by a car and I'm angry because of X, Y, and Z. See it from a different perspective. So, yes, my skull was broken, but I'm here. I'm here speaking to you today.
Yeah.
And after, I'm going to go and get my children from school. Food, and they're probably going to mess all over the place.
You'll get frustrated. Yeah. No, right.
I'm happy to be frustrated,
Yeah. Yeah.
And we gotta find happiness in the most mundane things that we do. We gotta find happiness in the things that irritate us.
Yes.
Because if you don't find it, nobody else will.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, that's the thing about hope. It's like, you don't become hopeful, and everything's great, or you don't become happy. It's a cycle, right? It's an ongoing cycle. And when we go through significant challenges, that's when we have to be more really hardcore about our shine skills, right? Our stress skills. We have to do a lot of them all the time, continually. You think about the pain you were constantly in during that and how you had to constantly manage that pain using those skills, how you had to cultivate happiness habits really way more intentionally, do everything you can, dive deep and dig into finding ways to experience moments of joy, including the music. So important. How you had to chunk down your goals through the inspired actions, how you had to cultivate those nourishing networks, how you had to work on eliminating those challenges, like worrying about the future, rumination, and really staying engaged in the present moment. when we go through times of great challenge, we have to be super diligent about our skills for hope, because it's easy to fall into persistent hopelessness. And, unless we're taught skills, we don't know how. When I think about COVID, what happened with COVID and why clinical anxiety and depression rose, it's because we practiced the things that keep us hopeless, right? We stayed in our emotional despair about what we were going through. We stayed in a sense of helplessness because so many people focused on what they couldn't control, as opposed to practicing the framework throughout COVID to stay in a better place, to better manage the change and adversity and challenges. And that's why, I love how you share. I mean, we should love our sadness, we should love our anger, and we should learn from it, as opposed to being taught that those are bad things to feel. They're actually pretty powerful emotions if we just learn to use them.
And the one thing that you said a little bit beforehand, and I know it's also written in your work, to feel sad is not wrong. To be upset is not wrong. To feel angry is not wrong. These are normal emotions that we do have to let out. If we confine that when we carry it within ourselves, it's going to grow, and it's going to grow into something worse. So be free to allow your emotions to be heard. For you to be heard, as opposed to just keeping it inside of a bubble. And so just going back to one thing. So as I sit here with you today, I mentioned my face being sore. I can tell you my eye right now is getting quite tired because I'm looking at you. I've got my laptop in front of me. My back is getting sore. And the more and more I do it, the more and more I'm going into another trough. And I know myself personally, I need to go for a run after. I need to do something active.
Right.
Because if I don't do that, I know what's going to happen next. My brain, my head will start slowing down. I'm going to get into a rut, etc., etc. And I do find, for me personally, music and physical exercise, be it going for a run, be it going for a jog, be it going to gym, be it going for a cycle, anything changes my mood set, changes my mind. And that is also something important for the listeners to consider. I know it's one of the points in terms of your framework as well. But once again, it's about reminding ourselves of what makes us tick, what makes us a better person. It's a slightly better person of what we were yesterday. It's aiming to be a little bit better each and every day that makes or delivers a big change at the end of the day.
Yeah. And I love that and we have to be so intentional about when we do it and what we do, and become very aware of that and in tune with our body and what our body needs. And, and listen to, take more control of our mind. I'm too tired to exercise. I need to exercise because this is going to release endorphins, and that's going to really help combat the stress hormones associated with what I've just experienced. So I love that. I have.
And then your mind will let you wake up.
Yeah.
Before you go, I don't have any energy, etc., etc. You go for a run, all of a sudden you can think.
I know, and feel better. Okay, I have to ask you, and of course our listeners, if you haven't read the book yet, you absolutely have to read the book. I'm going to give you a little hint. Damian did get back on his bike. So let's end with kind of, how did you get back on your bike, and when did you get back on your bike?
Josh, do you know what? As I said before, I didn't want someone to take away my happiness, and getting on a bike emotionally was very, very hard. But once again, my brothers were there by my side, helped me get back on a bicycle. I had a good friend of mine that helped me. We did the 94.7, which is a cycle race in Johannesburg. I'm actually right now raising funds for a trauma non-profit organization in South Africa by pulling a lot of people into a group. We ride in order to raise funds for them on an annual basis. But when I was doing it for the first time, once again, my vision was a problem. I had one person in front of me, stuck in front of me, one on the left, one on the right, to be able to do it. And that was the start of it. Thereafter, we did the Cape Epic. And just for the listeners, Cape Epic is the equivalent of Tour de France for mountain bikes. My back was an issue. Everything was an issue. I was able to do it with my brother, and we came in the top 5% of the finishers, and that includes the professional riders as well. So we had a fabulous ride, which, all of a sudden I felt that I was stronger than I was before the actual accident in terms of my cycling. And that was with a body that's broken. You're going down these descents, which are very, very scary. Professionals fall down, break the bikes, and break themselves in the process as well, And that was going down these same hills, seeing some of them lying on the side. And it must have wanted my bike's going to be able to take this, It's about just having that self-belief. The self-belief that, everything's going to be right. Doctors are not always right. What you read on Google, wherever it may be, is not always right.
TikTok,
Right in your heart.
Yeah.
What is right.
Yeah, self-belief. It seemed like you never questioned it. I just love that. I love how you described getting back on the bike. I love that you got back on the bike. I love that you're here to talk about it and share your story. I think this is so, so valuable for the listeners. I really appreciate you joining us today, Damian. You are, a treasure. And please, listeners, get the book, check it out. So much good information, so many tips, no matter what your challenges in life. We all have different challenges. We all go through different things or battling different things. There might be a 1% chance we can make it out of it. The goal is to focus on that 1%, right? And do what we can, what's in our power, what we can control to move to a better future for ourselves. So I really appreciate you taking the time, Damian, to share your story. Check out Damian's book. And thank you all listeners for joining in today on the Hope Matrix podcast. No matter what life brings, remember to keep shining hope. Take care.
So thank you all for listening in to the Hope Matrix podcast. We want to shine a light that hope is teachable, hope is measurable and teachable, and provide you with actionable insights for how you can start activating hope in your life today, and provide a framework so you can start talking about hope with other people and practice these skills together, because we are better with hope. Please feel free to check out theshinehopecompany.com, where we list all of our resources around how to hope. We have a lot of free programs for how to hope, including the 5-day challenge, our hope infographic with a lot of skills that showcase how to hope, and articles of how to incorporate hope into your life. We have the Hope Beat Weekly, which is a weekly newsletter that shares strategies for hope. We have a My Hope Story template, so you can write your own hope story today. Also, My Hope Hero, so we can share what our heroes are doing to activate hope in their lives. And this is especially good with youth, so they can start looking up to people that have overcome similar challenges to them and seeing how these heroes use the Shine Hope framework. We have a Hopeful Minds for Teens program, a Hopeful Minds overview, educator guides. We have a new evidence-based college course, so you can activate hope on the college campus. There are programs in the workplace, overview courses, 90-minute courses for learning the what, why, and how to hope. What I want you to know about hope is it's a skill. You've got to practice these skills to become hopeful. It's easy to fall into despair and helplessness when we deal with challenges in life, and it takes intentional work and practice to get to hope. And yet it is always possible. So no matter what life brings, keep shining hope. Thanks so much for listening in. Have an awesome day. And of course, I've got to add that this program is designed to assist you in learning about hope. It should not be used for medical advice, counseling, or other health-related services. I, Fred, the Shine Hope Company, and myself, Kathryn Goetzke, do not endorse or provide any medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. I am not a medical doctor. The information provided here should not be used for the diagnosis or treatment of any medical condition, and cannot be substituted for the advice of physicians, licensed professionals, or therapists who are familiar with your specific situation. Consult a licensed medical profession or call 911 if you are in need of immediate assistance. And be sure to know the crisis hotline, 988, if you are in need of support. Thanks a bunch for listening. Take good care of yourself and keep shining hope.